one of the best people, not only in the media world,
but
but
it's very kind.
the whole world in general. T-Bob Hebert, 104.5, former LSU center, but I think most importantly, the best dressed man at SEC Media Days, and my pool partner yesterday. How awesome is the pool at this place?
The pool's great.
The pool was
great.
Fantastic.
This is the ultimate example, guys, of why there is actual value to setting people's expectations very low, because you can get a lot more credit for not actually doing anything that impressive. Like for instance, normally I wear like a bathing suit, some sort of like flowery kind of loud button down.
It was a flowery bathing suit last night.
I love a sexy flowery bathing suit that shows off a lot of thigh. But the point is, normally I dress like a slob, and so today I finally wore a suit for the first time, and the amount of compliments and credit that I've been given, you would think I actually accomplished something. They're like, "Wow, man, you really made it. You're an adult now. They're so proud of you." So
Are you an adult though?
It's been very fun. Shit, I got three kids. So yes, I feel very adult. Although I did in buzzer-beating fashion, I just took home LAB Young Broadcaster of the Year for Louisiana, and the age cutoff is 35, and I just turned 35
They
in February.
named you Broadcaster of the Year?
Young Broadcaster of the Year. Okay, I'm still young, dude. I mean, no,
I'm impressed.
My knees, God, my knees don't feel like it, but it's cool though, man. I love this suit though. This suit
looks good.
Great.
It looks good. It looks good. Okay, let's. Do we have to talk about LSU?
We can talk about whatever you want, dude.
Let's talk about LSU. What is the ceiling for LSU this season?
Oh, I mean, I think they're kind of fascinating in that I think their ceiling is actually pretty damn high. They have a very friendly, or I guess in the SEC, maybe you would say relatively friendly schedule.
Yeah, that's fair.
It feels weird to say that when you have 10 of 12 Power 5 games, which not a lot of teams have.
Yep.
Because they have both USC and UCLA on there. A couple of SEC Big Ten classic matchups. But you're catching USC at a crossroads that is narratively very satisfying, because your crossroads are actually so similar. I just think that USC is a bit worse in a lot of spots than is LSU.
A lot of spots.
And
far worse tackling than LSU, which if you look at LSU last year, that seems almost impossible.
Well, and it's like they're both both those Heisman guys. Yep. Both are trying to replace their defensive staffs after god awful defenses.
Yeah.
It's year 3 for Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly, and it's crazy because those two have been linked since the search. They used each other as smoke screens, remember?
Yeah, that's right.
Lincoln Riley used LSU as I am not going to be the head coach at LSU, but he didn't say anything about USC.
That is true.
And then
Vice versa.
LSU used Lincoln Riley so that nobody knew what was going on with Kelly. So in weird ways, these guys have been linked forever, and now it comes to a head here in year 3. But Brian Kelly's won 10 games 2 years in a row. Lincoln Riley's last year was an abject disaster.
Sure.
LSU was a defensive disaster, and LSU's recruited better. So, LSU should win that game. UCLA should win that game.
Sure.
And then when you look at their SEC slate, all the hard games are at home. At A&M is sketchy. At A&M may be the game that decides. I'm getting pretty bullish on A&M, though.
Are you?
Yeah. I'm a bit of an A&M truther where I feel like the Elko hire, also a lot of it's tinged with personal bias in that Tommy Moffitt, the strength coach, is my favorite coach I've ever played for. And if I know one thing, they ain't going to be soft. Not with Tommy Moffitt. And I think that's been a problem for A&M. A lot of flash, not a lot of substance. So between the Elko hiring, Moffitt hiring, Wigman being older, even after all the transfers, they still have the 8th best blue chip ratio in the country. I think there's actually a lot of reason to be bullish on A&M. Notre Dame better be ready week 1. But anyway.
I think with A&M, too, not to get sidetracked from LSU, I can't buy Elko yet.
It's fair.
I think that it's you're close. I certainly an upgrade from Jimbo. And AM fans hated me because I kept saying that Jimbo sucked since the moment he got hired. Turns out Jimbo, in fact, sucked.
You're right.
I don't know about Elko. I think it's wait and see for me.
Here's what I was saying. Wait and see that's completely reasonable. But you have a cat who When he was a DC at A&M, obviously those were their best years.
Yep.
He had a win percentage well over 70. When he left, they immediately dropped to sub 500. It's not a correlation causation. We all know it doesn't mean one equals the other, but it's a piece in it. And he won games at Duke, dude. And if you can, it's kind of how I feel about Kalen DeBoer, but just on a way lesser scale. DeBoer's obviously more proven, but what happens when you give Kalen DeBoer Alabama's roster? And then if you're telling me Elko could go 9-4 at Duke, what happens when you give him A&M's roster?
True, that's
which
fair.
is way better than anything he's ever had before. Well,
mostly
except when he was DC there. And so it's like I feel pretty good about them, but they could be the difference, I think, with LSU between maybe 10-2 versus 9-3. But LSU's ceiling to me is pretty high because I think it's a playoff team. Like, I think if they go 10-2, then I think if you go 10-2 in the SEC, you'll make the playoffs. No matter what, right?
Yes, no matter what.
Yeah. So you got LSU, Tennessee, Mizzou, and then maybe you throw like you could,
I think Ole Miss is in there. Yeah. I think there's four teams in the top tier, and then you move it down from there.
And then so which one of those teams will find their way to 10-2? And what fascinates me about that grouping is they all play Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's true.
So Oklahoma is actually the team that will decide who does or does not make the playoffs this year.
And what kind of a passive-aggressive slight at Oklahoma too, a little bit.
It's just so Oklahoma's in a weird spot where I just don't know, you don't know what to make of him. Speaking of not knowing what to make of a guy, I don't think anybody had a more confusing year last year than Brent Venables, because he did the thing he beat Texas.
Yeah.
He beat Texas. The world was his oyster.
Yeah.
They were going to win the Big 12. They were going to go to the playoff. After the 6-7 disaster, everything was going to be good.
And
then you found a way to somehow make that season not successful.
And you lost to your rival in the last season.
You somehow lose Bedlam, a rivalry which you can't even call a rivalry because you've won 95% of them or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And not only do you lose Bedlam, but it keeps you out of the Big 12 and puts Texas in. To win, you could not have had a more anger-inducing 10-win season if you sat down and wrote the script.
Yeah.
With a screenwriter.
Yeah. No, it's 100% accurate. It's 100% accurate. Okay, so with LSU, you're obviously the greatest offensive lineman in LSU history.
Fun fact: I was the highest-rated player on NCAA 2012 for LSU.
Were you really?
Not to brag, yeah.
I had no idea.
Yep, 92 overall. Again, guys, I don't want that information out there, so don't spread this anywhere. Don't tell all your friends about
92?
it. 92? Hey.
In 2012?
Not to brag, dude. What are you going to do?
Was that Jarrett Lee?
That was the year where we ended up going undefeated.
Oh, that's right.
That was before that year.
Yeah. That's
but
right.
nobody knew that Tyrann Mathieu was going to go on to
be
a Heisman candidate.
It would have taken 1 week in this day and age when they readjust the rankings.
Yes.
One week and you would be below 10.
Tyrann would have been 99 easily after that Oregon game.
After 1 week.
After that Oregon game.
Yeah. Okay, so with LSU, the defense was god-awful last year.
They're actually worse than USC, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, but USC can't tackle.
Yeah, true.
How good or less, how less bad does LSU have to be defensively?
I think if you are middle of the pack, 60s, stuff like that, I think you're probably 9-3. I think if you push into the top 30, maybe top 40, I think that's maybe where you could get into that 10-2 range. And it's weird.
I think that range, legit national championship contender.
Well, maybe so, right? Because if you make the playoff, I guess now by definition you're at least in the dance, right?
Yeah.
And if you're a team that's hot, you figured yourself out as the year goes on, you could be a 2-loss team that's probably that could be favored because maybe you're just playing better, right? Yeah. So I think and my kind of favorite defensive stat is quickly becoming stop rate, where it's very simple. It is just every time an opponent gets the ball, what's the percentage of drives that end in points?
Yeah.
Versus ending in turnover, punting, whatever. LSU was allowing opponents to score at a 60% clip last year. So if you got the ball, you had a better than coin flip chance of putting points on the board.
That seems impossible.
It was awful. They ranked at certain points of the season. They got slightly better at the end, but they were literally down in like the 120s, 130s in terms of stop rate. So if that number gets to 60, then that's when I think you're getting in that 9-3, maybe 10-2. And then, like you said, if that number could get so high as 30, then you might be talking about like some actual championship noise, maybe a big upset here or there. Even though I guess the only real upsets on their schedule potentially would be like Ole Miss, which is in Death Valley, and that's gonna be tough for
and
Ole
I think
Miss.
when you,
and then Alabama, obviously.
I don't know what but here's the thing: I don't know what the odds are, right? I don't even think there is one for LSU Ole Miss yet. Death Valley matters, and for Alabama, we have. My thing with Alabama is if anybody here, and there will be takes, all over here. If anybody here has a definitive take on Alabama, they're a liar.
See, I think
because we just don't know. Like, there's no blueprint to replace the greatest of all time.
No, but I'm very bullish on Alabama because it kind of goes back to a bit of the Elko logic where Kalen DeBoer's resume speaks for itself. It's an incredibly proven resume. What he did with Washington the last 2 years, the teams that he beat consistently. I mean, we forget he two-piece Sark. I think he three-piece Lanning.
Yeah.
Like all these other coaches that we think are so great. Like, he beat with lesser teams.
Sure. Consistently.
I think his record in ranked games against the top 10 is like something absurd. I can't remember off the top of my head. So whatever. DeBoer's super proven, win at every level. You now give him a spaceship of a roster.
Sure.
Something that he's never even had a modicum of what he now has. And it all goes down to Jalen Milroe for me. And I know the weapons are a huge Achilles heel. And that'll ultimately, I think, decide Alabama's season. How good can Jalen Milroe overcome what appears to be outside looking at a lack of weapons?
Lack of weapons. The receivers are a big problem.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And running back, you don't have anybody that's proven. Now, with Alabama under Saban, that didn't matter. It was just like rechurning over and over and over again the same running back. With Jam and with Justice, they're really talented. We just don't know.
But you know what DeBoer loves to do? He loves to run the ball. It was one of the more fascinating things.
And he loves to get players out in the backfield or out of the backfield in the flat too.
Well, and if you looked at every big game that they had last year, even though we all thought of Washington as this throw first, like deep ball, constant attacks, and there's a lot of that. But Dylan Johnson would get like 30 carries. Like they were in every big game, there would be like 30 to 33 carries given to the running backs. So what happens now when you give him that Alabama offensive line and the talent of that backfield? And I think out of all of your top 5 quarterbacks, nobody has more room to improve and take a massive leap than does Jalen Milroe.
I think that's fair.
Because he's only started for 1 year. Everybody acts like he's a known quantity.
Yeah.
Like, that was his first year last year.
He was thrown in for 1 game, 1.5 games.
Yeah, like the Arkansas stretch from like the year before, I think.
And then was it Texas A&M?
Something like that.
Yeah. It was Texas A&M because Haynes King had a shot to win at the 5-yard line.
Yes. So he's only started for 1 year. Look at the improvement he had from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And then understand that Tommy Rees, whatever Wunderkind kind of shine he had on him, it's kind of gone the opposite direction where we all think Tommy, like, does anybody talk about Tommy Rees anymore?
No.
Exactly.
No.
So now you're giving him Kalen DeBoer, who we believe to be one of the best offensive minds in the country, granted without Ryan Grubb, which bears mentioning, but it's like the writing is on the wall for Jalen Milroe to be awesome. Like, there's no bigger difference than from your first year starting to your second year starting. He has a much more confident and stable position entering the season.
Sure.
He has a much more confident and stable offensive coaching staff entering the season. And he has such a clear area in which to improve, which is the short to intermediate game and getting the ball out of his hand.
Yeah.
Craziest that I saw, according to PFF, he had an average time to throw of 3.44 seconds last year. Worst in the country. So he literally, and it's never.
And he never got a clean snap.
And
ever.
It's like, I don't want him to be like, I never want to force him to be something he's not. I don't want him to be like top of that list, but you can't be quite that long.
No.
And so increasing your short and intermediate range, that'll get that number down. So like, I look, Am I allowed to curse here? I won't
Sure.
curse.
No,
It doesn't
you
matter.
can. It's cool.
Okay, well, I fucking hate Alabama, okay? To my core, down to my nuts, in my toenails, my RNA, my DNA.
Sure.
I hate them. So just understand, I say this all begrudgingly. I say this all trying to be an objective observer.
Yeah.
I wish I could join, because a lot of you with you, like Jake Hesser, he doesn't really believe too much in this Alabama team. I think it's kind of going to be business as usual. I got Georgia, Bama, and a tier of their own. Then I've kind of got Texas, Ole Miss trying to prove to me that they belong in that tier. And then I've got your grouping of Mizzou, Tennessee, LSU.
All the rest. A&M, Auburn,
and
whatever.
A&M's kind of knocking on the door because you have that group by years.
I agree. I think it's 4 and then 3, although I would say that it's Georgia, Texas ahead of the other 2 in the Big 4, and then you start dropping down. But.
I mean, my deal with Texas is I was the biggest Texas hater forever. Or I was a Sark hater. And I kept saying before the last year, like, win 10 games and I'll change my mind. And so he did it.
Yeah.
And so I give him credit, and I see it. I still got questions about their secondary, and even though I know they had some guys missing spring. And that's why the spring game looked so bad. But also, I got a little bit of like, just prove it to me again, Texas.
Let me see it.
Let me see it one more time.
Yeah.
Let me see it. Now, I'm not sitting here hating like I was last year, like being like, y'all are going to suck, fuck you. Just prove it to me again, and then I'll fully give you the benefit of the doubt from here on out.
I would say for Texas, prove it to me in one game. Once I see it in one game, another game, a big game, then I'm all on board. And I think they can.
When do they play Michigan? Week 2?
Week 2.
That's going to be fascinating because as many question marks as Michigan has, the defense is going to be incredible. They still have Will Johnson and Mason Graham.
2 All-Americans. Two consensus All-Americans.
The defense is still going to be awesome. So we'll learn about Quinn Ewers and that offense and their worth that game.
It'll be awesome. T-Bob, well, I think the most important question, you're done for the day, at least on 104.5 in Baton Rouge. What time are we hitting the pool, and how many Coors Lights / Miller Lights are we having?
I feel so bad because I just keep agreeing to do. The pool's probably going to I'm thinking around 5 or 6.
Okay.
I'm thinking around 5 or 6. I'm going to do the afternoon radio kind of car wash. And then at some point this week, I got to commit an afternoon to go buying birthday presents for my wonderful wife who's at home with the 3 kids, and I love you so dearly, and I'm so thankful.
He does. He talked about at the pool the other day, yesterday. He talked. All he did was talking about it.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Appreciate it, dude.
All right, Bear, thank you so much, brother.
Cool.
Hell yeah, dude.
Cool.